I don't think I started to feel like a man until I was married. I haven't given it much thought, but I think taking on those responsibilities was the actual tipping point. I had a job, a wife, a car. I was a man. Before that, I was probably a young man, but I wasn't in the club yet. I hadn't taken on those responsibilities. It was like filling out a tick box. For my generation, you knew you were a man when you were getting married, and you had a wife, and you were starting a family. You had a job or a profession. You had a car. You had all those boxes checked. I don't think it was inwardly focused. It was situational. You put yourself in the situation of all the men that you knew, and therefore you must be a man. It was like you were on a road. You knew you were on a road, and you knew you were going somewhere, but you never thought much about the road that you were on or how you got there. You just thought about how far along you were. And my father was such an influence on me that at times I think I was trying to be as good a version of him as a version of myself at all. I was going to do all the same things that he had done, go to all the same places in life. I was going to get married young, work in the family business, have lots of children, and we'd all go together on vacations to the beach. Really, it was less like a road and more like a set of train tracks. It was just what men did. Like working and providing for the family. It's just how it was. It's what we saw on TV, and it's what I saw in my life. I only had one uncle who did work around the house, and all he did was vacuum, but other than that, men just didn't really work in the house. Sure, they'd fix things, but that was different. My generation started to change that, though. Now you have 2 family incomes, and everyone's expected to help out with the parenting. Sure, there were things that their mother could do for them at first only, but after that, we really tried to fulfill the same role. We both worked professionally and at home. My parents, though, they lived their whole lives quite happily within those old roles. It was easier to know what was expected of you. It simplified things. That is, it simplified things if you weren't gay. It simplified things if you could stand to be what people defined as the gender roles or relationship types that you should have. If you could tolerate it, it was great, but most of us couldn't tolerate it, and we didn't want to. That's why we started to tear up the train tracks. For my kids' generation, it's more like a road, so much more freedom. And at times I think that maybe this classification between masculine and feminine doesn't matter anymore, and maybe our society is moving in a direction where it's the individual that matters. It would be nice to think that. And maybe for my grandchildren, it'll be even less like a road and more like an ocean. And they'll be able to go wherever they want. And thank God for that. I wouldn't want it any other way. It's not easy, though. You just replace the strictness of the old system with a new burden of freedom. You sort of turn everybody into free agents. And everyone must assemble their own schemes of meaning and follow them. Problem is, they've only got our old maps to follow. And that's a process that can lead to a lot of wreckage at first, but folks have to figure out their own ways to go. And it's hard because now we recognize that there aren't differences in ability of men and women, but I still feel like there are differences. Not everyone's the same. And I'd hate to tell someone that they're not what they say they are. I feel like a man. My wife feels like a woman, believe me. And that's fine, that's how we work. What I can't figure out is which of these differences come from the individual or which of them we've learned. I look at my grandchildren and I see that they just don't get treated the same way. My grandsons get away with some things and my granddaughters get away with others. They get different Christmas presents, for Christ's sake. My in-laws keep giving them dolls and trucks. I give them all tools so they can help me build birdhouses for the Conservation Society. But I mean, if we're going to tell little girls that they need to stay inside and be quiet, and we tell little boys that they can yell and wrestle, of course we're going to see differences by the time they're 15. We see differences by the time that they're 4. I don't understand why we keep slapping their wrists for some things when we tell them they can do whatever they want. It just doesn't make sense. And I think that maybe there'll be a time where men and women aren't trapped in trying to feel like a man or a woman. Maybe there'll be a time when people aren't killing themselves to fit a mold. It would be nice to think that.